Hello, everyone. We're back. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are here at Bookshop with Dan Zuccarello from America's Test Kitchen, and we are so thrilled to talk about a very important and needed topic during quarantine in 2020, which is how to best use that favorite one pot or skillet you have in your house from the cookbook from America's Test Kitchen, The Complete One Pot. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Bookshop and do an intro for our incredible guest today, Dan Zuccarello, and who is executive food editor for cookbooks at America's Test Kitchen. So after I introduce Dan and talk about Bookshop, then Dan's gonna jump right in and just start talking about some of his favorite recipes, talk about the cookbook, and then take your questions right at about 30 minutes. So if you can see the Q&A, if you're joining us live at the bottom of your screen, you can submit your questions right around, I think probably 25 minutes in. Dan will probably start taking them. And yeah, then we'll wrap up about an hour in. So thank you all again for joining us. And I'm going to talk a little about Bookshop, and then Dan's going to just tell you all his secrets about how to best use your one pot as we move into this quarantine with fall, winter here in the Northern Hemisphere. And again, this is being recorded, so it'll be available on our YouTube channel after the fact. And if you are attending live today, you'll actually even get an email from us with 3 recipes from the Complete One Pot Cookbook from America's Test Kitchen. How exciting is that? So if you're attending live today, that's a perk. You'll get that email later too with those 3 recipes. And one last thing we would like to note is that if you are submitting a question, they will be vetted in real time, so you might not actually be able to have it answered. So we thank you for your patience and understanding if that is the case. So I'm going to talk about Bookshop here as we are in a very intense, important week here, November 12th, 2020, as we film this. And I think that we could all maybe use some comforting tips on how to best use one pot in our kitchen right now. It's very appreciated. All right, so first we're going to have a little word about Bookshop here. Every purchase you make on bookshop.org directly supports independent and local bookstores. Bookshop is an online bookstore with a mission to financially support independent bookstores because we believe that bookstores are essential to a healthy culture. They're where authors can connect with readers, where we discover new writers, and where children get hooked on the thrill of reading that can last a lifetime. And of course, they're also anchors for our downtowns and our communities. So as more and more people wanted to buy books online, and even before quarantine, we wanted to create an easy and convenient way for you to get your books and support bookstores at the same time, especially from those stores whose e-commerce capacity or inventory space Bookshop can help supplement. So as a standard, we at Bookshop always encourage you to buy books directly from your local bookstores whenever possible. And if for some reason you cannot do so, then you can come to bookshop.org. You can find your local store or more stores on our map on our website, and they'll receive the full profit off your order. Otherwise, your order will contribute to an earnings pool that will be evenly distributed among independent bookstores, even those that don't use Bookshop. We also support anyone who advocates for books through our affiliate program, which pays 10% commission on every sale and gives a matching 10% to independent bookstores too. So if you're an author, if you're a website or magazine, if you have a book club, if you have a social media account or you don't, even if you're just someone who likes reading, you can sign up to be an affiliate for free, start your own shop, and be rewarded for your advocacy of books. Bookshop wants to give back to everyone who promotes books, authors, and independent bookstores. So check out our free affiliate program too. By design, we give away over 75% of our profit margin to stores, publications, and authors who make up the thriving and inspirational culture around books. And we hope that Bookshop can help strengthen the fragile ecosystem and margins around bookselling and keep local bookstores an integral part of our culture and communities. Bookshop is a benefit corporation, a corporation dedicated to the public good. And with that, let's introduce our panelists. The reason you're all here, Dan Zuccarello is the executive food editor for cookbooks at America's Test Kitchen. His team is responsible for the development of over 500 foolproof recipes and unique cookbooks each year, including the 95 foolproof recipes you'll find in their newest release, Mediterranean InstaPot, which you can also find bookshop.org. He is currently in his 11th year with America's Test Kitchen, and he got his start as a test cook on the book team. He is a graduate of Johnson & Wales University, and again, you can find these on bookshop.org along with America's Test Kitchen's many other titles. So if you are joining us live today, you will receive not 1, not 2, but 3 recipes from the Complete One Pot after this. And with that, I'm going to go away for a while, and please submit your questions again around 25 minutes. Dan will start taking them. And we're going to go probably a little bit before the hour ends here. So 5 p.m. Eastern time. That'll be 2 p.m. Pacific time. And thank you again, Dan, for being here with us from America's Test Kitchen today. I'm going to go away for a little bit now. Have a good talk.
Well, thank you so much for that great introduction, and thank you for everyone who's joining in. Thank you to Bookshop for hosting this event. America's Test Kitchen certainly loves our local independent bookstore, so this is a really great opportunity for us. And we get to talk about one of my favorite topics, so it's a boon for me. One pot cooking, who doesn't love one pot cooking? For me personally, I'm all about efficiency in the kitchen, and it doesn't get much more efficient than cooking an entire meal using one pot. So a really great topic to be talking about. And like we said a little bit earlier, we're all cooking a lot more these days. So this is a great opportunity to kind of get a little creative in the kitchen, have some fun. We're going to talk a little bit about the project, Complete One Pot, a few of the tips that our team came upon when we were creating those recipes, and then talk about some really interesting recipes that I like coming out of the cookbook. And then I'm really excited to answer any of the questions that you guys have about the cookbook or America's Test Kitchen in general. If you're not familiar with America's Test Kitchen, I hope that you are. If you're not, we are a food media company that's really focused on creating community, encouraging creativity, building confidence for our readership in the kitchen. We do this a lot of different ways. A lot of people know us through our TV show, certainly our cookbooks. We have lots of magazine publications, Cooks Illustrated, Cook's Country. We have a whole line of cookbooks for kids, which we absolutely love. Check us out online, americastestkitchen.com. And then you can kind of see all the great things that we're up to there. So let's talk about Complete One Pot. Again, really great topic, a really great way to, cook dinner at home. The biggest benefit for me with cooking one pot, I think, is maybe self-preservation. It's easy to clean up, right? You're only cooking, you're using one vessel. And so there's only one vessel to clean up. And so, practically speaking, it's a really great way to cook your dinner. It's also, we're in the fall, we're getting into the winter months. We're cooking a lot more roasts, raises, all those really great comfort foods that we love. And one pot cooking kind of naturally falls into that style of cooking. So you're thinking about those great stews, pot roast, macaroni and cheese, lasagna. I always go to pasta. Why is that? But they're all great one pot dishes, right? And so, one pot is really great for all of those, comforting meals that we love. It's also really great, as a way of sharing, food around the table. We're not having as many people over these days, but even with our small families, at our homes, it's a great way to just kind of like bring dinner to the table and kind of really enjoy the act of just sharing a meal. Whether that's, using your Dutch oven and bringing dinner to the table in your Dutch oven, or maybe in your casserole dish. I love to bring my slow cooker to the table and keep things warm using my slow cooker. So, one pot cooking is a really great way to build that communal aspect of cooking. And lastly, the reason I really like, one pot cooking is it really allows you to get creative in the kitchen. And the reason it allows you to get creative is you really have to think a little bit more about the way that you're cooking your recipe. When you're cooking with multiple vessels, you can focus on, okay, I know the right way to cook a chicken breast, and I know the right way to cook potatoes, and I'm going to cook them separately, and that's all straightforward. But when you try to bring everything together, you really have to think about the hows and whys of the recipe. And in doing that, you start to find ways to get a little bit more creative. Maybe it's, adding, interesting flavors through spices or, herbs or things like that, or maybe it's sauces that you're going to contribute. So a lot of people think that, one pot cooking can get a little boring. I don't think that at all. I think actually it's the opposite. I think it's actually a really creative way to bring dinner to the table. So let's talk about a couple recipes that I'm really excited about coming out of this cookbook. I'm also really want to talk about, 3 tips that I think are really important to one pot cooking. These really came out of all the really great development that we did for this book. We have on the book team a team of 10 test cooks who are devoted completely to recipe development for all of our cookbooks. These are really exciting recipes that I'm excited to share with you. The first tip that I tend to tell people about one pot cooking is that a lot of the success to one pot cooking has to do with how you arrange the ingredients in the pot or in the vessel that you're using. It also, is really important how you position the actual vessel, either in the oven or in other ways. A good example of this is one of the recipes that I'm going to be sharing with you. Again, if you're watching live, you'll get this recipe. It's for a roasted chicken breast with butternut squash and kale. I mean, it doesn't get much more fall than that. It's a sheet pan dinner. I absolutely love sheet pan dinners. So a couple things to kind of seek out in this recipe. First of all, in terms of the rack position in the oven, I was talking about positioning being really important. We purposefully put the rack on the upper middle position in the oven. And that's because, in the oven, heat rises. So you have a hotter temperature at the top of the oven. And because we're cooking chicken in this recipe, we really wanted the chicken breasts to get nice and golden brown on the top and get, crispy skin. And so raising the rack in the oven really helped us to do that. In addition to that, we're cooking a bunch of things at the same time, right? We're cooking chicken breasts, we're cooking squash, we're cooking some aromatics, we're also cooking kale. And so how do you put all of those things on the sheet pan and have them all cook at the same time to the right doneness and get the results that you're looking for? And so what you'll see with this recipe is that we purposefully put the squash directly on the sheet pan. That's because the sheet pan is a good conductor of heat. That'll help the squash to brown. And then we put the chicken on top of the squash, and we do that purposefully because the squash actually kind of almost creates a wire rack or elevates the chicken so that you get a better distribution of heat around the pieces of chicken. And that allows the chicken to cook evenly and, allows the squash to get nice and brown and to cook to the right doneness as well. One other thing that I think is really interesting about this recipe is that we use a little bit of honey, and that's going to help encourage browning. And we have this really delicious yogurt sauce. I was talking about ways to add flavor to your recipes. There's a yogurt sauce that's in this recipe that has a little bit of orange zest, and a little bit of garlic, and there's a little bit of sage in the vegetables, and the combination of flavors is just absolutely perfect. Again, it's a great fall meal. So first tip to success in one pot cooking, really think about the way that you arrange the ingredients and the cooking vessel when you're cooking. It has a big impact on the results. Other examples of this, I think about, the slow cooker. If you have a slow cooker, a lot of slow cookers actually have a hot side and a cold side. And so you want to be aware of that. Often, if there's a control panel in the front of your slow cooker, that tends to be the cooler side. So if you're cooking things that you want to make sure are cooking, evenly, you may want to move more delicate things to the back of the slow cooker. Not many people think about that. In a skillet, thinking about a skillet in a similar way to a sheet pan, layering your ingredients in the skillet as you're building those dishes, and before maybe putting in the oven or even on the top of the stovetop, thinking about the arrangement of those ingredients. So that's tip one. Tip two, you want to make sure you're thinking about cooking ingredients in stages. Not everything cooks at the same time, right? It's a kind of obvious statement, but it's an important thing to think about because, if you're cooking with one vessel, you need to think about when do I put certain things in the pot to ensure that at the end of the cooking process, everything's going to be done as I'm looking, for them to be. A good example of this is another recipe that I'm sharing with you today. It's a creamy spring vegetable linguine, and it's made in the pressure cooker, which I absolutely love. If you haven't tried making a one-pot pasta dish, I definitely recommend it, particularly in an Instant Pot. I really love my Instant Pot. But you can also do one-pot cooking one-pot pasta cooking in a Dutch oven. And the great thing about one-pot pastas, you don't have the big pot of water boiling with the pasta and another pot of pasta sauce. The whole thing cooks together, and you get a lot of things. You get, the pasta's cooking in the sauce that you're making, and so you've got this pasta that's just infused with all this flavor. So for this particular dish, because we did it in the pressure cooker, we cooked the pasta in the pressure cooker with a little bit of water, some salt. A really important thing in your pressure cooker when you're cooking pasta is add a little bit of oil. That's going to help to break down any starches that are cooking and prevent any foam from forming on the inside of the pressure cooker. But I was talking about adding things in stages, and in this dish, the really important thing is that we don't add any of the aromatics, any of the vegetables, the spring vegetables, to the pasta until we take the lid off and are just about ready to serve it. Because if we added everything in the beginning, it would be completely blown apart, just mush, because you have that really intense pressure cooking. But by adding it at the end, you get these really great flavors, bright flavors, and you get perfectly cooked pasta. So tip 2. Tip 3 is to not just assume that, tip 3 is really to get creative with your pots and pans and appliances, and not just assume that a certain pot can only do one thing. I think about the example I just gave with pasta in your pressure cooker. I mean, not many people think about doing pasta in a pressure cooker, but I certainly think it's a great idea, and certainly worth giving a try. Another example, and the third recipe that I'm sharing with all of you today, is this absolutely delicious pear ginger crisp. And it's made in the Dutch oven. And most people are thinking, my Dutch oven is great for my soups and my stews, but I'm not really thinking about using it for desserts. But it's actually a really great vessel for making desserts. And this crisp is a good example of that. The reason I like to use the Dutch oven for desserts particularly, it's a great serving vessel. So if you're bringing it to the table, I was talking about that communal aspect of cooking. The Dutch oven is a really great, insulator of heat. It holds heat really well. And so it's actually a great serving vessel, because when you bring it to the table, that crisp isn't going to go get cold as it's sitting. It'll keep everything really nice and warm. And the other thing I love about making a crisp in a Dutch oven is that we can actually use the Dutch oven as a bowl. And so we do a lot of the combinations of ingredients before we even do any cooking, just in the Dutch oven. So getting creative with your appliances. A sheet pan is not just for baking. It's great for searing steaks. It's great for roasting vegetables. A skillet's not just for searing steaks. You can make a really great soup or stew in your skillet. You can do all kinds of things. And so I think I'm really excited about this project, Complete One Pot, because I think it allows our readers to kind of see all the possibilities with the appliances and the vessels that they have in their kitchen, and really get creative. And I hope that you get a chance to check it out and enjoy it just as much as we did making it. So with that, I'm going to start answering some questions. Let's see what we've got. So Matt asks, what are the best types of vegetarian proteins for these types of recipes? So, we've done a little bit of testing. We actually just came out with a complete plant-based cookbook, which if you are really big into vegetarian or plant-based cooking, I certainly recommend checking that out. But we did do some investigation into the alternative proteins, and they're actually really good. We do like our tofus and our tempehs, and the alternative meat blends. I think that in terms of one pot cooking, I think I actually find the most success using those alternative proteins. In soups and stews, I think partly because they're able to absorb a lot of those flavors because they, particularly the tofus and the tempehs, they really benefit from, absorbing some flavor. And so kind of braising them or stewing them or simmering them in a really flavorful base goes a long way. Let's see. Helen asks, is the Instant Pot synonymous with a pressure cooker? Great question. It's certainly confused all of us as we've done some of these appliance books. The short answer is that yes, the Instant Pot is a pressure cooker. The Instant Pot brand, started off, focused mostly on pressure cooking, although their brand now has a lot of different appliances for the home kitchen. So most people say Instant Pot as a way of saying an electric pressure cooker, which is right here and is our winning brand for electric pressure cookers. There's a lot of electric pressure cookers out there. I actually really like the electric pressure cooker. If you are interested in pressure cooking, I definitely recommend an electric model. I find it to be a lot easier to use than a stovetop model. We have done a lot of stovetop pressure cooking, but I find that you have to monitor the heat on the stovetop a lot more. With the electric pressure cooker, you kind of set it to the time that you're looking to cook, and you just leave it alone, and it's a great thing. So I definitely recommend the electric pressure cooker. Anthony asks, what is your most favorite dish from the book? Ooh, that's a tough question. I actually, I really like this pasta dish that I shared earlier, the pasta with the spring vegetables. I think I like that it's, like I said, I love efficiency in the kitchen. I really like for this particular recipe, when we were developing the recipe, we wanted just the right amount of liquid in the pot to cook the pasta, but then also give us enough liquid once we took the lid off that it was enough to coat the pasta. And the nice thing is that when the pasta cooks in the liquid and you use that liquid to make your sauce, all those starches from the pasta are still in the sauce, and so you naturally get this really great velvety sauce. And so for this particular dish, all we really needed to do was add a little bit of Parmesan cheese, and we kind of created a cheese sauce, and the starches really helped create this really smooth, delicious sauce. So it was really delicious. And then, like I said, we added the fresh ingredients at the end. There's some artichokes, some frozen peas, there's some lemon zest, and all those things come together. And I like it because, it's spring vegetables, but I would make that any time of the year because the ingredients are readily available at the grocery store. And so if I'm kind of getting tired, especially around this time of year when, we're thinking more hearty flavors, if I can really, if I'm really looking for some bright flavors, that's a great dish for me. Some great questions. So Terry asks, what type of cookware do you prefer? I've got a couple of my favorite pots here that, were definitely used in the book. I would say, a must in my kitchen is a really good skillet. We prefer, you can see in the back, a 12-inch traditional skillet. We prefer skillets made by All Clad because they're very even cooking, really well made. It's a worthwhile investment. A really great Dutch oven is a great tool to have. Again, you can make soups, stews, you can braise in it, you can roast in a Dutch oven. You can make really great desserts. Definitely would have a Dutch oven. A really great sheet pan, everyone's going to be making cookies, but a sheet pan's great for, roasting vegetables, complete meals. We have a really great recipe in the book that's, steak and potatoes, and, we preheat the baking sheet in the oven and we sear the steak on the sheet pan and we put the potatoes on there and you get this really great steak and potato dinner on your sheet pan. And I can't talk enough about my Instant Pot. So those are a few of my favorites. Nancy asks, does the cookbook offer alternative vessels to use with individual recipes if you don't have a particular vessel? For example, a pressure cooker. There are a few examples of recipes that throughout the book where we have developed the same recipe, but we've developed it in 3 different vessels, which is really kind of interesting for me. And we've done it for different reasons. So sometimes the recipe that we present in the cookbook is done in different vessels because we know that people may want a recipe that serves 2, or maybe they want a recipe that serves 4, maybe they want a recipe that's enough for a crowd. So you can make, beef stew in a roasting pan for a big batch version of beef stew, or make it, for maybe 4 to 6 people in your Dutch oven. So yes, we do have recipes throughout the book that kind of interchange vessels. We also have, a lot of recipes in this book. And so there's a lot of different versions of similar, concepts, soups, stews done in multiple vessels. So there's lots of options in this cookbook, no matter what, equipment you have in your kitchen. Becky asks, is there nutritional information for the recipes? Yes, there is in the back of the book. All the recipes in the book have nutritional information provided, which is great. Richard asks, can gluten-free pasta work in one-pot recipes? My sense is that yes. We did not develop any recipes in this book to be specifically made with gluten-free pasta. But I think, again, thinking about my experience with cooking one-pot pasta recipes, I think the cook time clearly is going to change a little bit, and maybe the amount of water. So I would suggest, if you are, utilizing one of the recipes in this book for a one-pot pasta, you may want to just kind of err on a little less water or cooking liquid, and as you're cooking it, kind of keep an eye on the liquid level. And as it's cooking, if you realize that the pasta is maybe still a little too al dente and you're running low on liquid, you can kind of add a little bit more water. And again, maybe keeping an eye on the cook time, and really just focus more on the texture of the pasta and less about the cook time that is published in the recipe. Victor asks, can you give an approximate percentage of what recipes there are for Instant Pots, Dutch ovens versus sheet pans? I would say there's probably 20% of the recipes are for Instant Pots. We actually, I want to say there's a little over 300 recipes in this book, and it's pretty well distributed across the board for all the vessels, because we really wanted to make sure that we kind of showed equally the value of all these different vessels. So lots of Instant Pot recipes, lots of recipes utilizing your Dutch ovens, plenty of recipes for sheet pans. And in addition to those 3, lots of, saucepan recipes, slow cooker recipes, skillet recipes. So we kind of cover all of the, classic vessels in the home kitchen. Deborah asks, what's your opinion of nonstick cookware over traditional cookware? This is a very good question. I think nonstick cookware has, been a big topic. Some people are a little bit, hesitant to use nonstick cookware because of the, material, the nonstick material, and all of that. I have nonstick equipment, skillets in my kitchen, but I only really use them when I absolutely need to, mostly for eggs or saucy recipes that could potentially, stick to a traditional skillet. But I would say my go-to is really my all-clad 12-inch skillet, or I'm a big proponent of cast iron cooking. So, a Lodge 12-inch cast iron skillet in many cases is just as good in terms of a nonstick surface as your, traditional nonstick cookware. So if you find yourself looking for a nonstick skillet but don't want to actually use nonstick skillet, I mean, there's, green nonstick cookware, but I would look into a really well-seasoned cast iron skillet, or even now carbon steel skillets have become much more popular on the market, and you can season them pretty successfully, and that seasoning actually creates a nonstick surface as well. So both of those are good options if you're not interested in using nonstick. Cosme asks, is there anything you've started doing in an Instant Pot that you've ended up preferring over the stovetop oven version? Great question. I don't know. I kind of, for me, I think when I think about cooking, I kind of like different things for different reasons. So it's kind of where my mood is. I've been doing a lot of Instant Pot cooking lately because we're actually working on an Instant Pot cookbook. So my head is like, everything is possible in the pressure cooker Instant Pot. So there's really, endless possibilities in these electric pressure cookers. I mean, right now, we're working on fish recipes. We're doing pasta recipes. We've done desserts. We've done lots of soups and stews, and they've all come out really, really great. So I think it's, if I'm in a rush and I want to make something quicker, I mean, I love my pressure cooker. I actually really like the Instant Pot model because you can sear in it. And so you really can do it all in the pressure cooker. So I would say, I don't know if I've actually really, found preference one over the other. It's kind of a roll of the dice for me a little bit. Great questions. Let's see. Ellen asks, how do you avoid having all of the ingredients taste the same? A lot of that has to do with, how you arrange the ingredients, like I was talking about before. I think a lot of it has to do with, when you add the ingredients. So if you want a specific ingredient to really shine in a dish, I'm thinking particularly with, pressure cooking or slow cooking, a lot of those flavors, because they're sitting in the same pot for a really long time, the flavors kind of just all meld together. And so what we tend to do with those types of recipes is, add them at the end of cooking. When they'll really shine. So things like, citrus zest or citrus juice or vinegars or fresh herbs, we will add at the end of cooking to really make sure that they shine. The other thing is really just trying to like separate things. On a sheet pan, it's a little bit easier to separate ingredients, keeping the protein to one side and the vegetables to the other. That's a good way of kind of keeping flavors distinct. Let's see. Terry asks, I have a rusty cast iron skillet. Is there any way to restore it? So, couple things. Really important when you're using your cast iron skillet to give it a good scrub after cooking. Don't be worried about using an abrasive sponge. Don't worry about using soap. All of those things are perfectly fine. I do them all the time. The really important thing is to dry it really well after you wash it. That's the first thing and will help prevent you even getting to a rusty cast iron skillet. If you do find that your skillet has, some, rusty spots on it, my biggest advice to you is to take a wad of paper towels and a little bit of oil, warm up the skillet, and just use the oil to kind of rub off the rusty spots, and they'll just kind of go away. If you have one of those cast iron skillets that's kind of sat in your basement for several years and is just kind of completely covered in rust, a good tip is to actually put the cast iron skillet in your oven, set it to the cleaning cycle, and you can actually completely take off the surface, the seasoned surface of the cast iron skillet, and kind of start from scratch, which is good because I've seen some pretty bad, cast iron skillets where I have like built up, wear and tear from several years of being used. And so once you kind of completely clean it, you can take, again, a wad of paper towels, a very small amount of oil. You really don't want to over oil your cast iron skillet, and just kind of rub the entire surface. I like to put it back into a 300 or 400 degree oven and kind of bake on that oil, and that will then kind of start fresh with your cast iron skillet. Let's see. Recipes. I think that's it for questions. One thing, in talking to groups, often a lot of people ask about the experience of working at America's Test Kitchen. So I guess I'll wrap just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a window into, working at America's Test Kitchen, which is just such an incredible place. If you're ever in the Boston area, we're located in the Seaport District at the Innovation and Design Building. We love having our friends and fans visit us, so I certainly encourage you to come check us out if you're in the area. We are a team of over 50 test cooks who spend, on a normal circumstance, the day-to-day in this incredible kitchen, cooking food, talking about food. It's a really collaborative environment. We're always kind of sharing ideas and questioning each other and growing. And that's kind of how we get to these really incredible recipes like the ones you'll find in Complete One Pot. It's a team, sport. All the decisions that get made in terms of what the final recipe looks like is a combination of, input from the test cooks, from our fans. We survey all of our recipes and get feedback from them. So it's a really wonderful process, and we're really proud of, of the work that comes out of it. Most of our test cooks, have professional restaurant experience. Most of them are coming from culinary schools. That's kind of my background as well. And so, this is just a really exciting opportunity for many of us because we've experienced, the challenges of cooking from home. We understand that, when you're cooking from home, it's an investment of your time, and that, if you're going to invest that time, you really want to make sure that it's well spent. And so all of us kind of start each day recognizing that, the work that we're doing is really important work, because I think, cooking for your family, and especially right now, cooking for your family is more important than ever. And so, we're really proud of all the work that we're working on. And so again, thank you to Bookshop for hosting me and for hosting, this conversation. Again, please check us out at americastestkitchen.com if you're new to us. And, please check out our cookbook, Complete One Pot. Thank you so much for all of your questions. Really love talking about this, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.